All right, today we're going to piece together a portrait of a true pioneer, Judge Robert H. Terrell. And we're going to do it using only the historical documents he left behind. Now, this means we'll get to see his incredible achievements, but it also means we're going to come face to face with the gaps in the record, what we know for sure and what's been lost to time.
So, let's just jump right in with the big question. Who was the first black judge to serve in Washington, D.C.? I mean, think about it. That's a huge milestone, a real landmark position in American history.
And here he is, the Honorable Robert H. Terrell. His career shattered barriers right around the turn of the 20th century. He was setting a whole new precedent in the American legal system. Okay, so to really understand the man who pulled this off, we have to go back to the beginning. Let's dig into his origins and the amazing education that really set the stage for everything that came next. So what the record tells us is that Robert Terrell was born back in 1857 in Virginia. His family was described as upper middle class, which is pretty significant for the time. He went to public schools in D.C. and then headed off to the prestigious Groton Academy up in Massachusetts. You can already see he was on a serious academic track.
And just look at the caliber of his higher education. In 1884, he graduates cum laude, that's with honors, from Harvard. I mean, that is an unbelievable achievement for anyone back then, let alone an African-American man. But he didn't stop there. He went on to get not one but 2 law degrees from the legendary Howard University Law School. But you know, even with a resume like that, an academic record that was second to none, his path to the courtroom was not a straight shot. He actually had to take a detour through a career in education before he could even think about entering the legal world he was so well trained for.
This quote right here, it tells you everything you need to know. The sources are crystal clear. It didn't matter that he had degrees from Harvard and Howard. The racial barriers were so high that it was incredibly difficult for him to get a job as a black attorney in the nation's capital.
So what does he do? He builds this incredible, multifaceted career. He becomes a dedicated educator, even serving as principal of the famous M Street High School. He lands a major government job as a chief clerk in the U.S. Treasury. And somehow, through all of that, he still managed to run his own law practice for 6 years. It just speaks volumes about his persistence, doesn't it?
So, all this varied experience, plus the professional network he was building, it all eventually led to the single most pivotal moment of his career, a truly historic appointment to the judicial bench.
So how did it happen? Well, the sources point to politics. Terrell was a dedicated Republican, and his political alliance with the incredibly influential Booker T. Washington was absolutely key. It was Washington who had President William Howard Taft's ear, and that connection is what ultimately got Terrell his nomination. But here's where the historical record gets a little fuzzy. It's a really fascinating look at how history gets written down. As you can see, different sources actually give conflicting details. One account says President Taft appointed him in 1910. Another one credits President Theodore Roosevelt, but 8 years earlier in 1902. It's just a reminder that even these key facts can get blurred over the years. But here's what we do know for sure. No matter the exact year or the president, his confirmation was an absolute battle. The sources specifically use the words bitter opposition to describe how Southern Democratic senators reacted. This was so much more than a job interview. It was a political fight against racism at the very highest levels of government. So, after overcoming all of that, Robert H. Terrell begins his long, distinguished career on the bench. So what do we actually know about his time as a judge on the District of Columbia Municipal Court? This photograph is just so powerful. It gives us this rare glimpse of Judge Terrell, right in his element, at his desk. He served on this court from the moment he was appointed all the way until his death in 1925. That's a long, dedicated career administering justice right there in the Capitol. But this is where we run into a profound silence in the historical record. The source materials just don't give us the details on the substance of his work. What was his judicial philosophy? Did he have any landmark rulings? What kinds of cases did he hear? How did he act in the courtroom? All of these crucial details, they're just gone. They're largely absent from the documents we have. So, how do you measure the legacy of a man when his most important work is so poorly documented? Well, to do that, we have to look at his later life and at how he's remembered for everything he did outside the courtroom.
And Judge Terrell stayed deeply involved in his community. He actually went back to his alma mater, Howard University Law School, as a faculty member. He was also a charter member of the D.C. chapter of Sigma Pi Phi, which is the nation's oldest black fraternity. Sadly, his health started to decline after he suffered 2 strokes, and he passed away in 1925.
And his legacy is still physically present in the city he served for so long. His former home, which he shared with his wife, the equally famous and trailblazing Mary Church Terrell, is now a designated historic site. It's right there on D.C.'s African-American Heritage Trail, a permanent marker of a truly remarkable life.
And all of this brings us to one final, really important question. We remember Robert H. Terrell as a pioneer, right? The first black judge in D.C., a man of incredible intellect and persistence. But that's silence in the record. The silence about his actual work on the bench. It forces us to ask, what is remembered and what is lost? It's a powerful reminder of how history is built and whose stories actually get told in full.